I would disagree with the World Economic Forum. They've ranked Tourism Ireland as third in the world. It's very questionable how they're not first in the world really in terms of effectiveness. I don't know, because really in 6 months since I've come into this job, absolutely it's been a pleasure working with Tourism Ireland and with the very dedicated team that is working with Tourism Ireland, because really for a small country, a small island, in the west of Europe, we're really punching above our weight, I think, in terms of how we're performing, and it really is encouraging to see so much progress happening. And the fact that here in the Republic alone, that we're reaching almost 9 million visitors this year, over 10 million for the island, I think is really fantastic progress. When you think about Croke Park, 82,000 people, multiply that by 100, and another 7 or 8 times over, that's the number of people who are actually coming here to holiday every year. That's a hell of a lot of people, and it's creating, sustaining directly 225,000 jobs in 225,000 households around the country, and that can never be, I think, overstated how important that is for people in every part of the country. That is the one thing about tourism. We talk about regionality, and we talk about the recovery in Ireland not getting into every community. Well, tourism is a fantastic vehicle for people to have sustainable futures in every community in Ireland, and certainly as someone coming from a very peripheral part of the country, from the Dingle Peninsula, I've seen that firsthand. And we've seen in Kerry, where I come from, over the last 5 or 6 years, the huge progress that has occurred in tourism, and that's replicated throughout the country. And experiences and products like the Wild Atlantic Way, Ireland's Ancient East, have really contributed to huge growth in the industry, and there's a huge future there, I think, as well. I think these things are only getting started. We always had the Atlantic, it was always wild, and for a long time we've had little ways around the place, boreans and everything else, we just didn't join it up. And by doing that, we've created a fantastic experience, but also an avenue, I think, that will really help our regionality and seasonality into the future. And I think the Ancient East development is a very positive one as well. It brings a whole new dimension of this country to visitors. I think certainly the coastal route along the Ancient East is something now as well that into the future we can develop. And I think we can see some of the success from the Wild Atlantic Way replicated on the East Coast as well, and the South Coast of the country. But I think that when you look at those figures, and you look at the revenue figures from North America, from mainland Europe, and even from the UK over the last 3 years, particularly in the UK, we've heard a lot of negativity about figures dropping, but the revenue figures are still very positive. But we need to challenge that, and we need to work harder in 2018 in terms of the UK in the context of Brexit. I welcome certainly recent developments. I think even meeting on Friday, I was launching a brand, the Corry tourism brand, and I met with a lot of tourism operators in Kerry. And Friday morning there was a sigh of relief collectively that there's some bit more certainty there now than might have been there 2 weeks ago, and I think that will help the tourism industry in 2018. That said, sterling is a chief determinant, I suppose, really, in terms of where people go on holiday out of the UK, particularly for short breaks. And that is something that's probably outside of our control, but the more certainty that we can get into the overall equation, I hope that we will see a recovery in sterling as well. But into the future, look, I think that connectivity is critical. It has been one part of the success story that is Irish tourism over the last couple of years. I want to commend Fáilte Tourism Ireland for the work that they're doing in terms of engaging with airlines, not just in enticing them here, but also the support that they give them too in terms of promoting their routes and helping assist marketing their routes. I think that's critical. I was recently, for example, in Berlin with Ryanair, who have opened up a Kerry Berlin route. I was in Providence with Norwegian during the summer, who have a new Cork Providence route. The last time, if you wanted to leave Cork for North America directly, you would have had to take the boat. About 50 years ago. Now, for the first time ever, there's a North American connection out of the southwest. Shannon is pushing ahead with new routes. I spoke to the CEO recently. They're very hopeful as well of getting more routes in 2018. And all of these new routes really help in terms of our visitor numbers, because people do decide to holiday where they can get to in a very easy way, and direct connectivity is a critical part of that. The government has done its best in terms of making the market as accessible as possible through scrapping the airport tax in 2011, which we've maintained. In terms of general support for the industry, we've increased our marketing fund to Tourism Ireland by 2 million this year's budget to help our digital marketing. Of course, I would like to see increased budgets for overseas marketing, and hopefully that will come in the future. It's something that we're fighting hard for. But we've also maintained the 9% rate of VAT, which I think is a critical component in the success of the Irish tourism industry over recent years as well. It's invaluable to operators, and whereas it has come in for some criticism from some people who said that it has done its job, I strongly maintain, yes, it has done its job, it's continuing to do its job, and it has a huge role to play in the future as well. And that people who think that by reverting back to 13.5% that we somehow will have a better outcome for Irish tourism and for Ireland in general, I think it's a very, very, very simplistic way of looking at 9% rate of VAT. For many people still, particularly in the peripheral parts of the country, in rural isolated areas, for many enterprises the 9% rate of VAT is the difference between surviving and not surviving. It's the difference between being able to invest a little bit more in your product and not being able to invest. And it has a huge role to play into the future. I think it has been one of the probably most pro-rural policies of any government in the history of the state. It has got into every community, and it's something that I'm very determined to ensure we keep into the future. And it's critical as well that the people working in the industry and the providers of tourism services would have certainty into the future as well, that this will be there, so that they can plan into the future in terms of their business, their own respective business plans. So look, I know that you're keen to ask questions rather than to be listening to me, but all I would say is that look onwards and upwards for 2018. Very much looking forward to going to the Star Wars premiere tonight here in Dublin. Again, it's one example of how we can get extra added value in tourism through activities that are happening here. Tourism Ireland have been very, very proactive in terms of making sure that we squeeze every possible cent out of Star Wars, as they have done with Game of Thrones as well. And that's smart. That's smart marketing. You can't afford to be buying advertising space all over the world, but you can be innovative, and you can create new stories and create stories that people will want to share for free, effectively. And Tourism Ireland are geniuses at that. They're really, really good at that. The greening, as you saw the figures there, the estimated advertising value of the greening initiative around the world in St. Patrick's Day, things like that are I think that's the reason why Tourism Ireland are ranked so highly in the world amongst their competitors, and I think that's the reason why we are seeing such a strong rebound in visitors, particularly from long haul markets as well. So we just need to keep up the good work. I think certainly from a government point of view, we're very committed to supporting our agencies with as much possible support as we can give. I think it's a good help that you have the Taoiseach and the current Minister for Finance as former tourism ministers as well. It makes my job a little bit easier. We're determined to ensure that we grow that figure now, that 225,000 people, up to 250,000 and beyond that. And there's no reason we can't do that. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity for people all around this country and for future generations to be able to stay in this country, to be able to stay in the part of the country they want to stay in, whether they're here in Dublin, whether they're in West Cork, whether they're in Galway or Donegal. And past generations haven't always had that option. And that is one of the things that has blighted this country, and that is something I think that tourism can change. And if we can manage it sustainably, which is a key focus of all of our agencies and government, we can grow it, and we can grow it into something that's really, really positive for future generations. And that's what's happening here, and that's what Tourism Ireland are doing through their work every day. And for me, it's just a privilege to be part of that over the last 6 months, and hopefully we'll get time into the future to do more on that as well.